Hey Titans, this video is about your Prezi project, and you're not going to be able to have one of these, so you're not going to access this, but you're just going to go to Chrome and go to hopefully your Prezi account that you made in the previous video. As you can see, I named it Mr. C. I don't want you to put your last name in this project. This is live on the internet, so you can put your first name, last initial, and you can put your grade in too. So maybe I would do like Mr. C and then grade 27 because that's, I'm old. All right, so and then this little colon thing, and then it says 30 things about me, which is the name of this project. I want you to know that you could change your text. Leaving anything default is always the way to get the weakest grade or the least creative project. So you can change your text just like any other text. Here, like any other text program. Here are lots of fonts, which all look cooler than the one I started with. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a different one. You can change your colors right here. You can also change the size of your text box here. And if you wanted to really have your text be a little bit different, you could do like kind of a background to it. You can also make it bold. All right, so this is my title. I'm going to make it smaller and move it up into a corner here. And obviously, being that this is the title about my page, now I want to start putting in the actual content. I'm going to have you watch a separate video to tell you how to make circular content, but really you're just dragging in frames to get started. So being this is a project about me, the first thing it's going to have is a title slide. And again, there's going to be a different video that tells you how to make those title slides round so they actually fill the space exactly, and then you'll bring them in. I'm not going to show you that now. You're going to have to watch that in the other video. I'm just going to show you the setup. So if this was, I'm going to give this a pretend title that I'm going to fill this in. Again, I don't want you to do this way, but I'm just going to fill this in for time's sake. So this is my first bubble, and I'm going to say that I like movies. Okay, so I'm going to stretch it out a little bit so it all is in one line and move it to the bottom over here. And now I want visuals. Okay, I want I want this to not just write what I wanted to say, I also wanted to show something. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Google, and I'm going to type in movies PNG. PNG basically is a type of file that all programs can read as having a clear background. So for example, I think this is an excellent illustration of what a movie is, and if I click it, it shows that there's a checkerboard background here, which means that it won't show up when I drag it into Prezi. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that to my desktop. Now, by the way, if it has like a white, some of these I'm sure will have a completely white background. I'm just looking around now to see if any of that shows. So even though this is a PNG, this shows it has a white background. So that's not something I would use, even though I obviously wouldn't use this anyway. You want to have visuals that basically show whatever it is that your idea is. So this could say that I like sports, or it could say that I like, in which case I might show like a pile of sports equipment. Or it might say that I like cartoons, in which case I would show a collage of a bunch of characters together. So maybe I would get like a SpongeBob PNG and a Mickey Mouse PNG and put them together. Okay, so let me zoom out here. This shows me my entire project, by the way, and these are also just the regular zooms. I also want you to know that you don't have to use a circle frame. If you hold down your button here, you could pick brackets, rectangular, or invisible shapes. I don't recommend this one in this project because I want to see that you're actually using them, and I'd rather visually see them. So choose one of these, and if I were you, I would stick with one theme. I wouldn't keep changing. However, if you want, like this is like my first category, so maybe if I wanted to, while I was doing the things in the category, I might choose like a rectangle. For this one, I'm going to bring in all circles because that's just the way I like to do it. So this is my first category, and this is my first bubble of my first category. So I'm going to keep it near it, and I'm going to pick one of my favorite movies. So I would maybe put The Matrix. Now, instead, I want to be creative about what I put in my bubbles, and I also want to make that a little bit bigger. Meaning that I don't always want to use just a boring picture, but when I'm showing something that, like, let's say I was a sports fan and I said, oh, well, I really like LeBron, then what I would do is I would go over to YouTube and find a video that shows like 10 seconds of LeBron's best, ever anything. But in my case, I'm going to look for a Matrix ad. All right, so here I found the original trailer for The Matrix. I'm going to watch it to make sure there's nothing inappropriate for school in it. It was a rated R movie. But other than that, I'm going to choose it by copying this by selecting the URL up here, that's what that's called, or the address, and pressing Command and C at the same time. That's going to copy it. Then I'm going to go right over to my page here and press Command V. If I just click off the word after I Command V it in there, it's going to immediately change into the video, which I can change. In addition to showing the actual video, I also want students or other people watching your video to be able to access the link. Okay, so they can get it directly from YouTube. And to do that, I can't do the same thing that I did before. I do have to double click and open up a text box and then Command V, but I have to add this little slash, which is next to your equals button on the top row of your keyboard. So I have to hold Shift and press that so that you see that come up. That's what's going to stop it from becoming a video when you click off of it, and then you could just move it into place. I like to usually make it so the thumbnails are the links are pretty big, so as I said, this won't work now, but when other people are viewing it, they'll be able to click this and it'll bring them to YouTube. And that works for any internet site. So if you did like your favorite websites, you can do that the same way. All right. However, obviously don't give everybody access to like your private stuff. But if you have something that is school appropriate and that you'd want to show, like, one of my favorite web pages is Snapchat. So it can go to Snapchat, not to your personal profile. That would not be smart. All right, so now I'm gonna bring in this is my first category and my first movie. So now I'm just gonna bring in probably 5. It doesn't have to be 5 of each category. What matters in the end is there's 30 things about you, and categories don't count. So if I like movies as one of my categories, I might have 4 or 5 movies. And then if my next category is I like comic books, I might have 3 comic books, and then I'll make up that number in a different category to ultimately have 30 non-category bubbles. Okay, so these are my details. We'll call them detail bubbles. The next thing that you want to do is be able to insert some things. So I already showed you how you can insert images. You could also use this. I also showed you how to do YouTube videos. You could also do this. You can also add symbols and shapes here if you want to. I'm not sure why you would want to, but these are the next areas that I want to show you, which are drawing arrows and lines. I like to use lines, but you could certainly use arrows to guide your person around the page. When I'm moving from a category to a detail bubble, I'm going to use the line. But let's say I was done with this bubble and I wanted to bring them to my next category bubble. I can do this, which will allow them to see where to go, where I want them to go next. I'm going to put another bubble here. I'm going to alter its size, move it into place. I'm going to try and go with a little bit of something that's a little bit higher level thinking. I'm going to put artists that inspire me. Because I don't want everything to be I like this, or because those are too simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a list to your Prezi, which is the Prezi that shows all your projects, and it's going to have different categories that you can choose, and I'm going to have you choose different ones from each area, so that you have ones that aren't just like your favorites, because your favorites can get boring. Now, I don't like the way this line fits in this circle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the text. So I'm going to click in there and press return, and then I'm going to highlight both so that all that word is highlighted, and then I'm going to go over here and make it so it lines up, so it looks a little bit neater, and then I'm going to put it right there. So now I'm going to bring in some artists that inspire me. Again, when you're doing your category slides, I'm going to have you watch another video that shows you how to do that in a better way. If I scroll my mouse wheel, I can move and grab my screen. As long as I'm not touching any of the objects, I can just move my way around here while I'm editing. Don't forget to save whenever you do something cool. Pretty much every time you put in a bubble, I would save just so it's done in case your computer gets shut down for some reason. And other than that, you just want to stay inside this bracket. As you create, all this stuff will be posted to the actual internet. So again, make sure nothing contains any personal information, including your last name. The last thing I wanted to show you is that eventually your page is going to be full of stuff, and you might want to move large amounts of things at one time. And it'd be a pain to have to remove each of my different slides one by one. Let me just use the arrow key to move that back into place. I could also Command Z, by the way, if I make a move that I don't like. But I want to tell you how to group large areas. So if I am using the black arrow and I hold down Shift, I can drag a box over an area. Now, you can see that within my selection, I have some things down here. I have part of this arrow, and then mainly I have the stuff that I actually wanted to select. Now, I can group this, and then even if I don't group it, I can move it right now. So you can see that I grabbed that little picture, but it's way easier to just move that one picture back and and move all these where I want them and then move that picture back than it is to try and select all of them. So that's just what I'm going to do. But you'll notice the arrow was not selected because I did not get the whole object into my selection. You have to cover the whole object. So now that I have everything, I can move it where I want. This is extremely helpful for being able to move things and organize things in a new way. I actually like the way mine is set up currently, so I'm not going to do that. But you may want to group it, and this way, once it's grouped, you can move it however you want, whenever you want. Okay, so like let's say later on I'm working over here and then I go over here and I could just move that. So it's good to make groups. If I wanted to get this guy out of the group, I would have to ungroup it, move this to where I want, and then regroup it. So for instance, I would do this. I'd move this out of the way, click it so that it shows the possibility to ungroup, and then I can move this back to where I want by zooming into it, selecting it, and moving it over here. And then I can hold Shift again to get this thing going and push group. All right, so that'll allow me, now I can move this category wherever I want. So at the end, if I said, hey, you know what, this one is more important to me, I want to have this be my first one, I could just move this whole thing over here, and it won't interact with the others. I could group this, move it over here, and then put this in its place. So that's the benefit of grouping. I thought it was important enough to let you guys know about that. Also, you'll see that another option is to favorite it. So if I were using one bubble lots of times, which I can't imagine why you would do in this project, but you could favorite the bubble and then you would go to insert favorites and it would be there. Okay, so I could like pull it out of there and it'll be made for me at the whole time. What you might want to do for that, I guess, if you had a bubble that like had a bunch of text in it that you wanted repeated, then I guess you could put it to different ones. Like if it said, my first favorite video game is, and then I would put that in each one by favoriting it and then dragging it in there and then adding Mario, Earthworm Jim, Sackboy, Mega Man, and Zelda to each one individually.